let's talk about the offer that Aaron Judge got or didn't get. Well, we don't know about the number. So Passan, Rosenthal, everyone reputable came out saying that the Yankees offered Aaron Judge 8 years in the ballpark of $300 million as our preliminary offer. Jake, what are your thoughts?
I mean, so this is one thing that I think I've been seeing on Yankees Twitter for a bit, and it has been driving me crazy, admittedly, is people are taking that number very literally. Like they're saying this is 100% 8 years, 100% $300 million, when in reality, Jeff Passan said it's in that ballpark. I think that is a great starting point, a really good stepping stone for this offseason to really get it kickstarted. Um, they're not going to outbid themselves. The Yankees are not going to try to outbid their own offers. So like, why set the bar at 45 million a year when no other team has proven that they're going to actually touch that yet? I think 37.5 million already breaks that prerequisite that it's above the highest current AAV for a current position player, which is Mike Trout at 36. I think 36.5, something like that. So he's
I think
already got
so,
him
yeah.
beat there. And I think this is a really good start. And obviously, it's up to the Dodgers and the Giants to raise that price up. They're going to have to. I think the Yankees put the right amount of pressure on opposing teams to actually try to get this thing moving. And I think this is exactly what needed to happen in order for the winter meetings to become that much more important.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that sweet spot, like you said, where it's enough of, it's a reasonable offer. Last year I mentioned it on our previous podcast, but the Astros gave an offer to Correa that they knew he was never going to take. With
Mm-hmm.
this is a real offer for Judge, and I think it's a bit under what he's ultimately going to get. But it does both a good job of setting a reasonable market where the Yankees aren't needlessly pushing the boundary up, but it also puts the pressure on San Fran because now I think reasonably, at someone of this level with this kind of commitment for him to move, I think for him to go to another team, they're going to need to give at least 5 to 10 million more. I don't think the union would really get on Judge, for taking a marginal decrease for the Yankees if it's like within the 5-10 million range. So now you look at the Giants are going to have to open up their bid, let's say 8 years, 310. And yeah, I think that's even lowballing it. I think he's going to end up at the 40 mil a year. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's that exact sweet spot. You put pressure on the other teams. Okay, now this is kind of what the market is. They're going to have to go up. Do they bid with themselves? Do they go to 340, 350? Are they ready to do that? I don't know that any team is. I'd be surprised if they are. But it also, I think it starts the negotiations in fair terms with Judge. They had their offer. Judge bet on himself, and now they're coming to the table. Yeah, we'll give you this much. This is real. And we think, we don't think you're crazy for asking what you're asking for.
Yeah.
And given the market, I don't think he is. So I think Judge, his agent, the Yankees are all on good terms right now. So it makes me excited.
Yeah, if anything, he is setting a ceiling, and it's a great first step. I think that there's not another free agent that's going to get even remotely close to what he's getting this year. I mean, like you've got, like we've touched upon how much we like Trey Turner, even Carlos Correa. Like those guys are going to get somewhere in the 200s, but Judge is going to ultimately get probably 100 million more than them total, like throughout that contract. And another thing that we have to take into account is what's the structure of that contract? Is it going to be end loaded? Is it going to be front loaded? Obviously, it makes sense to front load it and then have him get something like 20 to 25 million a year, 30 million a year, like by the like what year, 2030, whatever year that would be, 2031. So there's a lot that we just simply don't know at this point, and I think we have to be okay with that. We have to kind of let that natural order take place in order for this thing to actually set into movement the right way.
And I think that's a good point about front loading the deal too, because go back and listen to our episode number 3 with Jay Ray where we picked the team, but ultimately we found that the only way to make a real championship level roster is to break that $253 million threshold, that number 2 threshold. But the thing is with that is that obviously they're within that threshold, the more you go over, the more you're taxed on that extra money. But in terms of draft picks, international money, that kind of compensation, it's even across that level. So I think let's say we give Judge a $50 million contract next year, and then when he gets to 38, that's down to like a 32 mil, a 30 mil. I think that could be ideal for an aging player. And then at that point, given inflation, given how the market expands in baseball, Judge could be on a cheap deal in his mid 30s as a DH for what he can give. So I'm excited for it. I think the Yankees are in a good spot with him. I'm more optimistic than I've ever been about his return. But winter meetings are next week. There's going to be a firestorm on Twitter, and Nightingale and Rosenthal and Passan with different agents and owners and GMs in their ears. So we'll see we'll try to parse what's real out of that and where that goes.
Absolutely. Like we all know his value. They know his value. He is the most valuable player out there. I mean, he was obviously named MVP, but like he straight up, if you look at his numbers, he had the best statistical season by anyone in a long time. So whatever he gets, he earned it, and we just have to accept that.
Yep. We'll do more on Judge, but another move that was of note on Yankees Twitter was the Yankees tendering Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to a 1 year, $6 million deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
1-6.
1 year for six. Um, and the main thing I want to say here, a lot of people kind of construe that as, oh, the Yankees are committing to IKF. And in a way they are. Um, but the point of that deal was what that does with tendering IKF that contract is that settles his arbitration. So the Yankees aren't going to go to hearings with IKF. They generally don't like to do that with their players. They almost did it with Judge just because the numbers are pretty big up there. IKF had a projected arbitration of about 6 million, so the Yankees kind of settled, avoided that lawsuit, not that lawsuit, but that court date. What that does, potentially, one, we're going to talk about DJ's injury in a bit, but it gives the Yankees flexibility. They have a major league infielder at worst. He could be the starting shortstop. We'll see as we get to March. We have other options. But what it does for the Yankees is that instead of releasing him and not having a major league infielder anymore, with injuries and whatnot, they have an infielder where he can play. He could be a shortstop. And also it adds a bit of trade leverage because I think if you trade a player who's going into an arbitration hearing, it's just a little bit more of a headache for a team that would take him on. So if he is still a trade piece, he's more comfortable and he's at the reasonable price that you would think he would get. But he's also a major league caliber infielder, which I've said, I think IKF is of value. And whether he starts at shortstop, we'll talk about that more.
Yeah, I still don't think that he's going to be starting shortstop, in my personal opinion. And I think that this is an easy kind of deal to make just because it is literally for 1 year. It's just a 1 year commitment. And it's very movable. Like there's no reason for them to feel hamstrung by giving him 6 million this season. Like very, very easy money to move.
Yeah. And I think there's very few teams in baseball that would shy away from a 1 year, $6 million contract for IKF. Because ultimately he is what he gives you, even maybe the really low salary teams that just go for prospects at middle infield, but I think that's decent value for what he can provide.
Yeah.
And I think it's even more important. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just think he'll be a great bench piece, if anything, for the Yankees this season, or kind of used in that super utility spot just to move around because, like you said, DJ is going to be a big question mark entering the season.
Yeah, so this past week, it came out with some information about DJ's injury, and I think that information is more uncertainty than anything else. What we learned, I joked with Jake that when the Yankees do the end of season presser, that they're gonna tell us, oh, DJ got surgery and so, like that's inevitable. What we learned that DJ didn't get surgery. It's a pretty rare injury what DJ has. And they're being cautious about it. The doctors honestly don't know the best way to approach it, so they're letting him rest for a while, see where that gets him. But what might end up happening is DJ has a long resting recovery, or that decision on surgery is made late, potentially into the new year. And then we see him out for about 3 to 4 months from then. So I think my thinking right now is he might miss the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season at least. He could even be sidelined into June. And so all of a sudden, We do have infield depth, but DJ is a big hitting piece at the top of our lineup. He gives that utility. And now we have to start thinking about what does our infield look like without DJ in it for at least the first few months.
I mean, it definitely affects the decision on Glaber. Like unfortunately, this could be a reason to keep him for another year, even though I still don't see him as a part of the bigger picture for the Yankees moving forward beyond 2023. So that does concern me a lot, but he might have to stay simply for that reason. Although I still think that it's more valuable to actually give run to Peraza and Volpe and then still bring in one of these new shortstop free agents than trying to keep Glaber in the picture just for another year. Although that just is more likely now because they don't necessarily have to move him. I mean, he's making 10 million a year, right, for arbitration this year.
Yep, just
So
about.
not a terrible deal to be on for a 1 year contract, but at the same time, it's just like he's not going to be blocking at the end of the day, Volpe and Peraza. And it's still there's a chance that one of those guys gets moved too, so there could be a lane for him to snuggle right in there. But it's just one of those things that it's unfortunate because I still think that they could get a lot of value out of Glaber this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, it kind of depends on the Yankees' aggressiveness. It's easy for us to sit here and say, hey, you can trade Glaber, get good value, you can get this shortstop, and or maybe you can move the kids. Ultimately, the Yankees understand more about the market. Do I think they're passive more than we would like sometimes? Yes. But the Yankees' tax is real. In terms of the teams are hesitant to give the Yankees a full package that they would give another team for the same player not wearing pinstripes. So just because people don't want to see the Yankees succeed because they have for so long. And, and I understand that from another team's perspective to an extent. You don't want to rob yourself of prospect capital or just good players in general. Um, I hope the Yankees use this as flexibility to maybe an opportunity to bring up Volpe on opening day, which I shot down at first. But with DJ out, that opens up a lane for a top prospect. Does he really? What are those 3 weeks in AAA going to do for him? I don't
Yeah.
know how much they would actually do. Volpe is by all accounts a pretty ready prospect, and maybe they're more likely to also pull the trigger if they can get rid of Glaber on one of those top shortstops like we spoke about.
Yeah. I mean, I think like that's the good thing at least is there are options there, and it is very likely that Volpe is going to be on the Yankees main roster playing in the infield at some point this season. But this definitely murkies the waters and kind of makes it unsure when exactly that's going to happen now.